So yeah, it's Sunday, the beginning of the terrifying packed month. Hopefully it's not too crazy for you. Hopefully it's not too crazy for me. It does have its pleasures, but just kind of settling in here to it. Um, I am going to squeeze in a meditation retreat, which is nice. I did one in October that was sort of reasonable amount of meditation, but this one is going to be more meditation heavy. I'm looking forward to that. It'll be very interesting. It's been a long time since I was like spent. It'll be 5 days of like the schedule's pretty intense. Like I'm used to Zen session, which usually have a lot of sitting and you usually get up really early. But there's also these sort of like work periods packed in, so you're kind of moving your body. You're not really exercising, but you got a little bit of room. And this one is just a lot of sitting, a little bit of yoga, I think. So it'll be very interesting to see what results with that. Although I must say, just as a voice of confidence and encouragement for those of you who are meditators who've been doing it for a while, but maybe sometimes you're like, why am I doing this? It's like, oh, or you're struggling to like do it every day or most days, and then it's fewer days, and like, oh, should I keep struggling? It really is totally worth it over the long haul. Like even now, even if I never have another enlightenment experience or zap from the sky, just like the garden variety everyday experience of it is really refreshing, interesting, kind of trippy, and also just very ordinary in a good sense, like in a way of just being very grounded and present. So if you are struggling, and we haven't talked about that too much here, uh, and just saying that that's always meditation sucks, man. Yeah, Scott's reminding us that Beavis and Butthead agree that meditation sucks. Um, and maybe meditation sucks, but just sitting there sometimes doesn't suck because you're just sitting there. Uh, but yeah, so I'm curious. I know Scott has his own philosophy of meditation regularity, and I love it. So there's a whole variety of ways that people approach this question, and Joshua I know has a very different philosophy of uh, practice and regularity. I have to admit I've been more into regular times, doing it usually pretty similarly, slight variations. But it's what's really been opening up for me, and that's what I want to talk about tonight and then play around with a little bit, is really refining what seems like would be very simple. Yeah, we can get Josh and Scott to talk a little bit later about their practice, and actually maybe that'd be a fun thing just to hear in general how people are handle this sort of demand. There's a kind of like demand when you start meditating, like, oh, you got to be doing it every day. And I always knew people who really did it every day, and then people like me who kind of did it every day and didn't try not to stress about it, but then you'd stress about it. And da 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 da. It's like a whole thing that maybe we can talk about. I think it's a good thing to go over. It's part of the path. But what I was saying is just what's impressive is how challenging it can be to just sit there. There's a Japanese poem, or actually it's Chinese, so it goes back to like the 7th century, 8th century, called the uh, Mirror of the Precious Jewel Samadhi. I think that's what it is. I think I'm getting it wrong. I'm going to pull it up just to make sure. And there's a great line in it that I might as well uh, read here. Should have gotten it done there before. Song of the Precious Mirror Samadhi, and or Jewel Mirror Samadhi, and it ends in this wonderful way. Practice secretly working within like a fool, like an idiot. Just to continue this way is called the host within the host. And we don't need to talk about the host within the host, but let's talk about the fool and the idiot. Why are they using this language? Because it's really, really hard to just sit there, meaning don't do anything. Like, don't do anything. It's called the Song of the Precious Mirror Samadhi, of the or the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. Some people translate it as, and it's yeah, I think it's from the classical Chinese period, the Song Dynasty. I don't think they know who wrote it, but it's great. The whole thing is really, really worth sitting with. So there's a couple of these older Zen poems that just you can just keep reading them. I mean, they just keep coming at you from different angles, and some of it you're like, what does that figure of speech mean? And it almost doesn't matter. Uh, and gets better the more you learn about the context. So there's this kind of admonition you find in some kinds of meditation. Some kinds of meditation, there's a lot to do. One, like in Vipassana, you're like kind of deconstructing the phenomena that arise. There's you develop mindfulness, things are bubbling it up, emotions arise, feelings, you go, what is this feeling? Where is it in my body? What is it actually made of? And what seems like a pain might, under this kind of extra examination, it's not really a pain. What's a pain? That's a concept. It's actually a kind of tingling in my lower left tibia, and da da da. So you're like working it. You're working the phenomena as it arising. It's gentle. It's not like crazy, but you're working it. And then in more concentration practices, shamatha oriented practices, there's also a doing, which is that you keep returning to the object of meditation to develop your concentration and to develop this kind of, juicy, vibrant kind of, I don't want to use the word trance in a negative sense, but it has a quality of trance to it, because your busy mind is no longer jumping around, but is actually able to settle. And when it settles, this beautiful kind of energy arises, and then you can sit with that more easily, and you have less to do. But there's still a doing, because your mind goes away. Oh, I got to bring it back to my breath. Oh, I'm going, well, I got to bring it back to the breath. And there's this kind of like, you're like kneading a ball of pizza dough or something. You just got to keep on, like, you spread it. Oh, no, put it back together, put it in the ball, spread it. Okay, put it back, So there's this doing. There's a lot of doing in meditation. It's great, and it's totally necessary. You got to do some of the time, especially at the beginning. And so when we talk about non-doing in meditation, it's really important not to just erect another ideal that then you like beat yourself up about because you're not doing it, or you have some fantasy about some future state where you're a great meditator, and all the great meditators, they actually don't do. The reality is, in my experience, and this is the way the more down-to-earth non-doing teachers talk about it, is that, yeah, some of the time you're still going to do some doing. You may go for non-doing, and then you realize you're just totally scattered, and you're like, okay, screw it. I'm going to follow my breath now for a while. Okay, things seem more mellow. Let's not do. But, we could talk about the paradox of doing, not doing, but in a way that only gets you so far, so don't spend too much time with it. The core matter, though, is this question about really just sitting there like a fool, like an idiot, especially like an idiot. Like there's nothing to do. What are you messing with? Don't think about it. Don't think that you can do something with it. Don't try to look for something special. And I say this because for me, part of this part of the path of practice is constantly realizing that I'm still invested in getting something, and that I'm still invested in doing something. I may be very relaxed, no striving, but there's still kind of a like, ooh, this is about to get good. Maybe if we just like push it in this little direction a little more, it's going to get really good, and I'm going to get something, or I'm going to do something special. And it's just how we're wired. And it's kind of funny. It's actually kind of charming almost, because it doesn't even have to get in the way, because, from another perspective, that's just what's happening. thoughts from a non-doing perspective do not stop happening. That's another really important place not to get idealistic. You say, okay, I'm just going to stop. It doesn't mean I'm just going to stop thoughts. Oh, now I'm thinking, I'm blowing it again. No, the brain secretes thoughts like the stomach secretes bile. And we're more intimate with that process because we are our sense, our ego, our identity, our language is all bound up with thought so intimately. But one can develop over time a kind of spaciousness wherein thoughts arise, but they just kind of bubble and you don't pick them up and they subside back into the stew. And that's just what's happening. And as your mind gets less caught up with the thoughts, and especially the chaining of thoughts, because that's a lot of what happens. You have a bubble, and when you do get into a concentrated space or a really deep kind of spacious awareness, you can see the beginnings of thought, literally, like it's like you're looking at a still pool and there's these little bubbles and they're fucking hilarious because you're like, where the hell does that shit come from? You're like some book you read when you were 12 years old, and some dumb thing somebody said last night that you was like, what? Or you know, uh, your knee pain or just whatever. Like actually, that's a little more directed, but a lot of it is just super random, and it's actually kind of amazing. You're like, oh my god, the mind is amazing that it's like just grabbing from this like infinite well of possible proto thoughts. And then what usually happens is you like recognize it and you start to create a chain of associations. And as you create that chain, you become the chain and you're absorbed in the chain. And then there you are on the train, choo choo. This thing leads to that thing, leads to this thing, leads, oh, then my mother, I better call my mother because, oh, I'm sad she's going to die. And then what am I going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And you're on the train. So part of what you're developing with this kind of attitude of not doing is not that you're not thinking, but you're not doing thinking. You're letting thoughts kind of burble, and sometimes a little chain starts or whatever, but there's a sense of spaciousness around it. And one way of approaching this problem, and it's hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about not doing. What does it actually mean? Am I supposed to be trying to calm myself, and am I supposed to be not thinking? No, no. But it does involve a kind of investment in just sitting there and being very honest with yourself about when you're working it. And sometimes, again, you got to work it like, oh, I got to just follow my breath for a little while. This isn't working great. But when you have that sense of possibility, of possible spaciousness, you just let it go and you just try to be with whatever's happening and not to manipulate and not to try to make it special and not to try to do anything with it. The Dogen, the great Japanese Zen master, talks about like, don't have any designs to become a Buddha. Like, don't try to make yourself other than you are. Well, what's the reason behind all this? Because this is the way you practice with the assertion, I can't prove it to you, with the assertion that on some level we are already awakened. Now, when we say that, it's kind of almost like a cliche. Like, oh yeah, okay, that part, where we say on the one hand, you're working towards enlightenment, you're working towards practice, you're refining your practice, you're overcoming your blockages, you're becoming a better person, and then somehow at the end of this chain, you become enlightened. So that's a way of thinking about it that's more accessible to our egos because our egos are doers, and we are doers in time, and we want things to get better, and so that really works for us. And so they attempt to pull the rug out from under that process by saying, no, 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 you're already enlightened is cool, but you often go like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, We're already awake? I don't feel awake. Do you feel awake? I don't feel awake. What does that mean? How is that helpful? Well, practicing with non-doing is the way you instantiate, and you could say um, explore, or even sort of presume that this is the case. And you kind of see, well, if the stuff about being already awake all the time is true, then maybe just by sitting here and not doing a damn thing and being awake to what that is like, then there's some kind of connection with this already always being awake. And I would suggest that that is a valuable practice, that you begin to develop both the experience and, in a subtle way, the faith that this is true. And I use that word very intentionally. I mean, I was thinking about tonight, I was thinking about trying to talk about this, in a way, very simple practice, and in a way, very difficult practice. The simple part of it is that when we say you're already awake or already awakened, it's not that you're just that you're already the Buddha. It's that literally, in a very simple way, you're already awake, because right now we're awake, right? I mean, we might be in a simulation, but we're awake in the simulation. We're not sleeping right now. We're awake. Right now, sitting here watching this thing, there's that crispy, vibrant, transparent, lively freshness to experience that, goes away if you're really sleepy. If you're really sleepy, you're kind of losing it in my mind. You kind of blah, blah. You've lost that awake thing. And then you're like, what? Oh, wait, no, no. Oh, no, I'm back. Had a little tea. That. So just super ordinary sense of awake. That thing you can just rest in and not do anything at all, because it doesn't stop. It's always here. They say you can get to a place where it's always here throughout all of your experience, even sleeping, deep sleep, whatever. There's that kind of awake, spacious, crisp, vibrant awareness. I can't say that. I don't know if that's true. So I'm just talking about ordinary sense of being awake. But when you tune into that, which is challenging, but also extremely rewarding, it starts to make a little more sense what they mean by not doing, because literally are already awake. You don't have to do anything to feel awake. You're already awake. So imagine or experience, sense into your awakeness right now, but don't worry about all the content. Yeah, there's lights and different objects and there's thoughts in the head, whatever. But with behind that all, swallowing all that up, the space around everything that's happening to you is this basic, available, vivid sense of awakeness. I'm aware. One of the metaphors that I think is actually quite handy for this is it's like watching a movie. There's the movie, people are there, they're in the movie, things are happening, things are changing all the time, different emotions, different times of day. But all of it is happening in a screen, on a screen that is sort of alive and vibrant with phenomena. But the vibrancy is not any particular form of it, or any particular move or person or mood or sunset or anything. It's the situation of the screen. And you're kind of in this process of just letting go of doing. It's not just don't do, don't do, don't do. It's like, oh, wait, I don't have to do anything to be awake. I'm already awake. I am the screen. I am the screen upon which all the movie phenomena of my experience is projected. And I can just be the screen, which is also kind of just being the light. And that's really what it is. You're just being the light, the crispy vibrancy of awakeness. So it is actually kind of not that hard to get a glimpse of what we're talking about, because it's not something supernatural. It's not something higher. It's not the great Buddha mind. I mean, maybe it is the Buddha mind. Maybe that's all they mean. But we don't have to think about it with those terms. You can just think about it in terms of ordinary awakeness, but allowing that to come forward in its fullness, and the material of phenomena to become, not to go away, as again, thoughts arise, phenomena arise, the knee hurts, great, but it's all taking place within this kind of space or three-dimensional space-time screen that you are. You're not thinking about it. You're not meditating on it. You already are that, because while you are an ego, I want this, I don't want that, I like this, I don't like that, and you're a doer, well, let's kind of tweak that, and I can do this, and oh, I got to do that, da da da. You are also just the one who is already awake. And they're not exactly the same thing, but they're all there going on all the time. And so what you're really doing is letting go of the ego, letting go of the doer, letting go even of the kind of thinker, even though thoughts are still going to arise, although hopefully they do calm down and allow this state to become more vividly available. But you are also always already just awakeness, which isn't even really a person or an idea or a thing. And so the practice or the injunction to not do, to just sit there stupid, to just be an idiot or a block of wood, is not because you're supposed to just really, sludge out and become completely vegetable. It's that when you allow all that other stuff to drop away, what remains is this kind of fresh awakeness. And I mentioned the term faith before very intentionally. You can talk about everything that I'm talking about, practice it. You can, there are ways to approach this through Zen practice, and particularly the practice called shikantaza, which is translated as just sitting. And a lot of the spirit of what I'm saying is coming from that Zen flavor, because that's my background. There's also traditions in Hatha Yoga, Vajrayana, Tibetan Buddhism, most notably Dzogchen and Mahamudra, which are also gesture towards this mind. They're like, no reason to do prayers, no reason to do rituals, no reason to do mantras, no reason to do visualizations. It doesn't matter. You already are this timeless, spacious diamond mind, and that's it. That's what the diamond mind is, right here, right now. And there's all sorts of practices and ways of framing and discussing that. So these things are sort of available in the traditions, and you can approach them through these traditions without thinking about faith necessarily. But I brought it up because I would guess that a lot of us here don't, I mean, I'm just talking about me. You kind of have trouble with faith. Like, well, not just that we associate it with religions that we don't believe in, or religions that we were raised with that we decided were kind of BS. And it's easy to think about faith as just being blind faith or belief, in the sense of like, people have faith that Jesus died for their sins, and if you da 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 da, and yeah, that's kind of a faith, but it's really more a belief that people say, oh, that's my faith. That the practice of faith is actually really sublime and beautiful and extremely valuable, especially in challenging parts of life. And it doesn't mean gripping tenaciously to a particular belief as a blockade against all the terrible things or frightening things or challenges that are happening. And that's often what we mean when we say, yeah, I'm not that into faith. It's not really something I want to practice. I'm not really sure what people are on about. And so while I think that there's a more positive way of talking about faith within these other traditions, with like Christianity, why I mention it now in terms of this not doing is that I think it gives meditators a way to come to terms and even affirm their own relationship to faith, and even begin to kind of develop it. And what I mean by that is that in order to really not do, you kind of have to have some faith that that's a worthwhile thing to practice. Because if you're tweaking, if you're modulating your meditation, even in a subtle way, you're always improving. There's always that sense that the better thing is just around the corner. If I just keep doing this the right way, then I'm going to become more calm. Then I'm going to get into these states, or I'm going to meet the Buddha, or I'm going to realize my Buddha nature, or whatever it is. And even if you're not thinking about those high-handed kind of ultimate goals, just the act of constantly modulating and shifting and improving and modifying is itself a kind of, well, faithlessness. You're kind of like, well, I got to do something. I got to keep working on this thing. I can't just let it sit here. So it's actually really scary on a certain level to just sit there. Don't do anything. Just what's happening is what's happening. Don't make it any different. Don't shine it up. Don't look for the peace in it. Just let it be there. And so it's hard to do, but by recognizing the way that this is also an act of faith, it can become interesting in a different way. It's like a kind of prayer, but the prayer is just this, just this, just this. And it's, a little trite to say, it's the kind of thing that people say in teaching meditation classes. But emotionally, it has this potential to be really profound in precisely this kind of faith way, and in a way that then goes through other parts of your life. And then there's a way in which just like meditation becomes a prayer, but not a conventional prayer of like, oh, great X, make my life better, or thank you so much for being around, or whatever, which is cool, gratefulness and even, some requests for blessings. It can all be part of the path, but it's a different kind of faith. It's just like saying yes to reality in its just the way it is, which includes suffering and pain and the fact you're going to die. It's part of the weave, and it's not trying to like, oh, it's all part of the great mystery. It's not. That's too conceptual. It's it's a practice of just being awake to what's happening and having some faith that that awakeness, that crispness itself becomes more and more of the essence of what you're seeking, that you are the essence of what you are seeking. That already awake mind, that mind we already have right now, is the end goal of what you're aiming for. And it might sound like a platitude, but in practice, I think it starts to unfold more and more. And there's some really great things about it where it can be very relaxing. In some of the Dzogchen teachings, they really use that word all the time. And you're like, oh, this must be some special kind of magical relaxation, like some esoteric relaxing of inner energy. No, just relax, like really relax. Like, no, no, no. That guy that wants to do something inside your head or gal, no, no, no. Relax. Just chill out. Just chill. Just sit there. Just sit there. Just relax. Just relax. And so that's one of the ways to get to work into the state is to start off with relaxation, which is what we'll do when we sit. And but really allow the relaxation to percolate through the subtlest elements of your mental consciousness, uh, uh, where you're allowing even the gripping on phenomena to relax. You're allowing the templates that organize myself over here and the world over there to relax. That doesn't mean they disappear. It doesn't mean you melt into cosmic oneness. It's just this spirit of relaxation that allows more and more of the grippingness of reality to fall away, leaving the spaciousness, the awakeness, the awareness there. So, with that as a lengthy preamble, let's sit for 20 minutes or so, half an hour or so. Um, And here, I'll just tip this is Song of the Precious Mirror Samadhi. So yeah, uh, take your seats. And I do, recommend, as always, sitting with your back not leaning against a chair. Uh, and if you're not sitting cross-legged, to make sure to have enough height beneath your hips so that your pelvis is naturally kind of spilling forward. I really recommend that posture because it's the easiest way to relax the system. So in whatever position you find yourself, let's sway around a little bit. Kind of recognize the whole funny skeletal architecture that we are and that we inhabit, and all of its little variations. And then as we kind of spill around, just settle in to a stillness and a quality of erectness so that the spine feels like it can just rest upon itself with the minimal amount of muscular engagement. And that's really the key with the settling of the posture. And everybody's got to find their own particular twist on it. Those of you who have heard me, you hear me make the same suggestions every time. And those are my best stabs at encouraging you to find that posture within which you can relax the most without losing the integrity of the posture. So your hips are spilling forward, creating a curve in the lower part of your spine. Your shoulders are gently rolling back. So there's a sense of opening in the chest, very slight. This has a nice kind of emotional feel as well. There's the sense of the back of your skull being lifted, almost as if it was on a string. And as it lifts and your spine gently elongates, your chin naturally tucks in slightly. Putting your hands, holding them together, resting them on your lap, putting your hands on your knees. Everyone's going to have their own way of handling that. But it's really the spine and the overall structure of the rib cage and the hips and the head that allow you to kind of find that space. But recognize you will find yours over time. And see if you can find yourself in that quality of being upright and relaxed. Really allow the relaxation now to sort of melt the stresses, the muscles, the tensions that generally hold up the body. See if you can just allow that relaxation to happen. You don't really need to do anything. It's kind of like just letting go, like opening the hand. And to help this along, let's bring in the breath. No reason to do anything with the breath. It probably already recognizes that something interesting is going on and might be time to slow down a bit. But even if not, just gently put your attention on the breath and particularly follow it as you go through the exhale. And when that exhale happens, it's like the exhale is the hand letting go, is like the body releasing stress. It's all a natural gesture, already part of your everyday, momentary experience of breathing. This gesture of relaxation, of letting go, of release. So let's just breathe for a bit and really note and allow that relaxation gesture to happen with the exhale. At this point, we're still doing a bit. Uh, Allow yourself to scan your body and see if you can find some stresses or tensions that aren't naturally melting away. And see what happens when you just sit with them. Don't make them go away. Don't squeeze. Don't force. But see if you can allow them on their own steam to relax. A kind of invitation without engagement. Sometimes this might require subtle movements. Maybe replay some of the earlier movements with the shoulders or the head, the spine. Really enjoy the sense of relaxation. Allow the simple enjoyment of it to bubble up and pervade your body and your mind. Consider that there is no end to relaxation. Tune into the feelings in your body, even the feelings that seem already relaxed, just a sort of energy or pulsing. And see if you can invite that to relax too. You might feel your hands on your thighs or ankles or knees, and you sense the skin kind of tingling. See what happens if you invite that as well to relax. Bring the melting on. And just as you noted, let's say, where your hands were resting on your body, allow yourself to note how you feel in the room. Is there a strong sense that you are sitting here in this other place that's outside you? That's great if that is. But tune into that sense. Maybe that sense that you're on the inside and then there's an outside through your eyes or beyond the edges of your body. Just recognize that feeling and invite that too to relax. Don't expect it to dissolve or disappear, but you may find that you loosen the hold of that concept that you are here and the world's out there. This might take a little bit, so let's give it a few moments here. Now, as we relax this way, sometimes we can begin to feel sleepy. So check in and note the quality of your awareness. Is it bright and vivid, or is it starting to be a bit sluggish, spacey, heavy? And if it is, sort of consciously bring a sense of brightness into the picture. You can open your eyes to let more light in. You can draw your attention to the sort of fresh, tingly feeling of air through your nostrils, or bring your attention to your forehead. You want to maintain the sense that you are upright and aware, even as this tremendous relaxation is going on, a relaxation that's relaxing you in all senses. That feeling you have when you slip into bed at the end of a long and difficult day with all of your burdens, all of the outstanding demands, and you know that whatever is left undone, whatever challenges the next day will have for you, right now, you can let yourself go. A kind of deliciousness, a kind of gift, and one that presages sleep, letting go of the you who carries all those burdens. Only here we are not sleeping. We are simply staying awake. So now just stop all that doing, relaxing this, tuning into that. And inevitably, there's some doing in the language, but whatever you're gesturing towards or allowing to happen, remember or even assert that you're only uncovering what's already there. So if you get caught up with thought, you recognize, oh, I'm caught up with thought. You let it go. You open your hand. But as you do so, recognize that the awakeness that appears in that moment is always already there. It's not something you're doing. It's not something you're making. And it becomes evident even in the simple, most repetitive, tediously boring act of meditation of recognizing you're caught up in thought and letting it go. Right there, already awake, already clear. Recognizing here is like tasting. Sure, tasting is a doing, but it's also becoming one with the thing it tastes. So allow yourself to taste that sense of awakeness, its vividness, its clarity, its transparency. Right now, radiant. Be honest with yourself as well and notice as you probably try to do something to keep a state going, to keep your thoughts under control. And, you're not going to get rid of the doer, but allow a lot of space around the doer and develop this sense of letting go. Don't let it annoy you. It's kind of charming. It's trying to make things better, trying to make things easier on you. But now you have an opportunity to just see how deep it goes, and that even at that depth, you're already awake. You might think, is this it? Can't be that simple. Or, okay, but it's a little boring. Doesn't matter. Lean back, relax into the freshness of the moment. And again, if you get caught up in thought, just note the quality of the space when you let it go, and develop the sense that that's always there, even when you're thinking. If it helps, you can allow yourself to tune into things that are happening continuously, like the sense of energy in your body or the quality of light. Not so much the specific light, but just the fact of visual brightness and shades. But recognize the continuousness of this phenomena rather than its dynamic coming and going. The visuality doesn't stop. The energy in the heart doesn't stop. And in that ceaselessness, you sense something of this ongoing, ceaseless awareness. There's one more level I want to offer, and if this makes sense, great. If it doesn't, no biggie. Which is to investigate the quality of groundlessness to this sense of awakeness. Phenomena is arising, sense of the body, colors, energy, and awakeness is there for all of it. But what does awakeness rest on? You may notice that something resists this sense of just awakeness, groundless, arising with nothing beneath it. But what a beautiful thing to recognize. We long, long for that ground. But that longing too arises just in awakeness. And that is the finer faith that this practice gestures towards, which is that awakeness is enough. It doesn't need anything more. It doesn't need to go anywhere. It doesn't need to rest on anything. And in that sense, it is free and available and very simple. It's okay. You can be a fool. You can be an idiot. All right, we're going to end the meditation there. And as you come out of it, allow yourself to go, is anything changing? What's changing? Is You may find that the sense of kind of electric radiance stays with you or comes up during the day. And that's one of the most, I think, marvelous things about this way of practicing is that you find that it starts to appear or unfold, arise in your ordinary day in a really particular way that's really quite marvelous in my experience. Um, so, yeah, thank you for going on that journey with me. Um, this was a somewhat unorthodox presentation of this material. In Zen, you just shut up. There's not a lot of guided meditation in Zen. They're like, go sit, stare at a wall, kid. Shut up. Which can be really, you can waste a lot of time that way. Um, the whole thing about guided meditation is very interesting because it's really, really helpful. But I think it's only really helpful if you're also doing a lot of non-guided meditation, at least for me. I can't speak for everyone. Um, so hopefully that wasn't too abstract. As I said, it's one of the paradoxes that it's very simple. It's very apparent, but it's also kind of hard to describe and kind of hard to wrap your practice around. It's a lot easier to talk about challenges and difficulties and practices that you keep doing, whether you're following the breath or whether you're moving energy or a lot of the other things that we've done in this class. So it can be a little bit elusive as a practice to describe. So hopefully that wasn't too uh, abstract. But does how was that for anyone? We could talk now. Now we can turn off the recording, Tim.